Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the EAL Qualification Reforms webinar on the Level 2 and Level 3 reforms. I'm Sam Ashmer, the Lead Technical Advisor for Engineering at EAL, and today I'm joined by the panel members, Robert Starr, Engineer, Industry and Portfolio Manager, and Kevin Sparrow, Building Services Engineering, Industry Portfolio Manager. So within the webinar today, you're all being set to mute and the videos have been disabled. Please use the question area to send any questions through. And my colleague Kevin will be monitoring that throughout the day. And the webinar resources such as this recording and the PowerPoints will be shared with you after when this webinar has been concluded. As identified, I'm Sam Ashman, the Lead Technical Advisor here at EAL for the Engineering and Manufacturing, Bob Starr, Industry and Portfolio Manager for Engineering and Manufacturing, and Kevin Sparrow, Industry Portfolio Manager for Building Services Engineering. So it's nice to see you all this afternoon. So today's agenda regarding the Level 2 and Level 3 reforms, just going to give you a background of the Post-16 Educational Act 2022, the Level 3 reforms categorised, the Level 3 direction of travel, the Level 2 reforms categorised, Level 2 direction of travel, our next steps at EAL, and then any questions and answers that we can answer throughout the webinar. So you may or may not that the Level 2 reforms in England are changing, and it's actually making sure that the Qualifications Act any organisation develops, such as ourselves at EAL, is making sure that we are meeting the Skills and Post-16 Education Act of 2022. As you can see on the screen, these are the main key points and the main aims of the reforms. So the reforms is building upon that work that's already underway to boost the skills and to get more people into better jobs. The idea of the reforms at Level 2 and Level 3 is to simplify the system that supports progression, such on to apprenticeships or higher education. Most of you will be delivering T levels, but may not understand what a T level is. So again, the government has identified that T levels to be the gold standard in the technical education for the 16 to 18s. It's also making sure that we are putting employers and standards at the heart of the design of technical qualifications. The reform qualifications will be delivered from 2025 onwards. Removal of funding for 16 to 19-year-olds that overlaps with any T levels, so such as Building Services Engineering and Engineering Manufacturing, is from 24-25. The removal of Level 2 funding qualifications that do not meet the new criteria, and we'll identify some of these criteria in the next couple of slides, is from 25-26. And also within the reforms, we're also approving a high-quality, small alternative academic qualification with added value to the A-level offer. So in the next couple of slides, what we have done, we've looked at these new targets, that new reform targets, and we've put a package together across engineering and building services on what we see is the qualifications of the future to boost that skills and employment and the simplified systems that support progression into education, apprenticeships or higher education. What I will do now, I'll pass you over to my colleague, Robert Stott, who will go through the next slides. Thank you.
Thanks. Good afternoon, everyone. As Sam said, my name is Robert Stott, Industry and Portfolio Manager here at EAL. So in the next few slides, we're just going to look at we're just going to break down the Level 3 reform categories. So as Sam mentioned, we've been given guidance by the Institute for Technical Apprenticeships and Education, and we've very much broken that down into creating an offer for our Level 3. So just looking at the landscape for technical qualifications for the 16 to 19 category. So as you can see there, a learner coming in 16 to 19 could still do apprenticeship. Again, the apprenticeship market has been there for a significant amount of time. It's very much facilitated by the apprenticeship standards. That is not going to change for a full-time learner. Looking at full-time learners coming into a technical point of view, again, the T levels in engineering manufacturing went live last year, September last year. They will be mandated from September 2024 in engineering manufacturing. So that will be an option then for learners. Now, thinking about us from an awarding body point of view, we can then develop, if we choose to develop a qualification that sits outside of T level, but is still aligned to an apprenticeship standard. And that's the key thing really to bear in mind. We know T levels are aligned to apprenticeship standard. Now, if we want to build a qualification, that middle box there, so technical occupational entry that is not served by a T level. So these are some examples of that, such as motorsport, which is possible aerospace, medical, for instance, or medical science. From an engineer manufacturing point of view, there's also then an opportunity then for us to develop in a technical additional specialist qualification, looking at the top right. And that's something that 16, 19-year-old learner will build upon an apprenticeship standard. So it's not covered in an apprenticeship standard in terms of knowledge, skills, or behaviours. It's slightly above that or sits outside of that. And then there's an option of technical cross-cutting qualification. So that's, I suppose, an amalgamation of one or two standards or even more standards coming together to create something a little bit different if there's a need for that from an employer point of view. So there's some options there, but we do see that in terms of 16 to 19, it's certainly well served from a T-level point of view. So not many opportunities there really sit outside of T-level. Looking at it from an adult point of view, again, the guidance is significantly different here. Again, the categories are still the same, T-level apprenticeships. But however, the key difference in this adult space is we can develop a technical occupational entry qualification that is aligned with T levels. So we can use that content. So thinking about fabrication, thinking about machining, it's covered in T levels, but we can use it to support our adult qualifications. Again, because adults for 16 to 19-year-old learners are a different category. So again, the guidance we've received is that is absolutely fine. There's also then employer proposed qualifications. So thinking about categories or sectors that aren't aligned to apprenticeship standards. I think in engineering manufacturing, I think we've got significant, it's 47 at level 3. So we've got a vast amount of apprenticeship standards. So I think in terms of engineering manufacturing, we're certainly well covered with the apprenticeship standards, so not much of an opportunity there. Again, we've got the specialist and we've got the cross-cutting as well. So those are the categories that we can develop it from a technical point of view. So I think gone are the days of no longer we can create qualifications that will be fully funded. And again, that's a key thing to bear in mind. This is for us to develop qualifications that will gain funding and retain funding. Okay, from again, Sam mentioned this in this previous slide, the alternative academic qualification. Again, an opportunity for awarding organisations to create an academic qualification which is aligned to A levels. Oh, sorry, which is aligned to A levels. So again, learners wanting to go down from an academic point of view, again, can still do A levels, absolutely fine. But I think from an engineering point of view, rather than the typical A levels, we can create something which is a small qualification, which will be the size of an A level, around about 360, and will be equivalent to an A level as well. So again, opportunities there. Just to look at that sort of in a linear point of view, looking at 16 to 19 and an adult. Again, just looking at that 16 to 19, we certainly feel that the T level does give a comprehensive overview of different occupational options in terms of the occupational specialisms. There's 13 currently in the T level, which does service majority of the occupations. We do certainly feel that is the case. Looking at it from an adult point of view, we certainly feel that there's an opportunity for us from the technical category in terms of the occupational entry qualifications. And I think in the next few slides, we're just going to go through in terms of what we've been working on, what we've submitted, and so hopefully you can see that sort of in terms of what's coming through in terms of level 3 reforms for engineering, manufacturing and BSE in the next few slides. So just in terms of the timeline, it's really important to understand, again, this is looking at us creating qualifications from a funding point of view, which meets the needs of your learners. And there's 2 cycles here. So we have the level 3 cycle 1. Now the cycle 1 refers to sectors. So there's been 4 sectors which have been highlighted in the first stage, engineering and manufacturing and BSE being highlighted in that cycle 2. And the guidance we've been working to is we've been working with the Institute for about 12 months, just over 12 months, and we've been given obviously timelines and guidance, but we very much started our qualifications around about February, March time when we received the final guidance in terms of what we could and what we couldn't do. And we've been working towards that. We did submit our qualifications at the end of July. And as part of that submission, we've had to create full qualification specification. We've had to do a significant amount of employer engagement because, as I explained, each of qualifications we have to do has to be aligned to the knowledge, skills and behaviours within a given apprenticeship standard. And we have to identify where given content aligns to that or one of those knowledge, skills and behaviour statements. So full mapping has to be submitted as part of that approval process. Sample assessment material, again, we're thinking about holistic assessment and how that's assessed. So we've had to create sample assessments. We've had to create a full employer validation pack to ensure that we've engaged with a range of employers. We've engaged with employers across the specification, assessment, and the mapping, just to ensure that there's a demand in the area for a given qualification. So that process has already been completed. We then submitted that at the end of July, and over the next 12 months, we'll probably several touch points with IFIT regarding the submission, and then hopefully by the end of next year, so summer 2024, we will get final approval for those qualifications we have submitted. And it's really at that point where Sam and the technical advisor team really start working with yourself, the centres, to onboard you and understand in terms of the qualifications that are coming through. First delivery of these qualifications will be September 2025. So there will be a 12-month sort of onboarding window there, which we will be working with you to ensure that you're aware of what's coming through. And it's really important to understand as well, this is cycle 1. We move into cycle 2. Well, we're not sure exactly when we move into cycle 2, but we're thinking it's going to be early next year. And it's at that point, other qualifications can come after that. So again, we'll be working with yourselves to understand if there's any gaps in our current offer. And again, we can repeat the process as cycle 2, but there will be a delay of 12 months in that. We anticipate there will be a delay of 12 months in the cycle 2 stuff coming through. So just having a look at the engineering manufacturing offer in terms of what we've submitted. So there will be 5 qualifications. Again, just to reiterate, this is for adult learners. So this will be the offer from 2025 for our adult learners or your adult learners. So qualification 1 is an occupational entry qualification, level 3 qualification within machining. And that is aligned to the new machining standard, which has just been released, or has just been released about 6 months ago. Qualification 2, again, a technical occupational entry in metal fabrication. Again, that's aligned with the metal fabricator. Mechanical engineering principles, which is aligned to engineering fitter. You then have electrical principles, which again is aligned to engineering fitter. And then the final qualification is an entry in occupational entry into mechatronics. Key thing there is we've had to align it to the engineering technician. We are aware that there's an update currently going on with the mechatronics. And once that update has concluded and that apprenticeship standard goes live, we will go back and we will make any edits required in the existing qualification to update to the new apprenticeship standards. That's something that we will have to do. So just so you're aware of that. Just looking at really what it means, we're just going to go through some of the units over the next few slides, but just to be clear, it's one common core which covers all 5 qualifications. Again, we've been given guidance in terms of how we can assess. So there has to be a mixture of external assessments and possibly some internal assessments. The core will be assessed via 2 multiple choice question banks to assess the common core. And then the practical is very much looking holistically. So it's possibly 1, possibly 2 tasks, which will cover the practical. But there will still be some knowledge which will be needed, which will have to come out in terms of possibly maybe a knowledge test as well to demonstrate where the knowledge has been picked up as part of the skills as well. So a mixture of knowledge and skills, but it predominantly will be a skills test, which will assess those skill units, which we'll look at now. So just looking at the first two qualifications, again, I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail, but hopefully you can see where the common core and the skill units distinguish themselves from one another. So just looking at the first qualification in machining, guided learning hours will be 545, and again, that covers 4 core units. Again, the core units are the same across all 5 qualifications. So unit 1, we've got engineering and environment, health and safety in the workplace, engineering, organisation, efficiency and improvement. We've got the maths and science, and then we've got the materials or structural properties and characteristics of materials. So that will assess the knowledge within those apprenticeship standards, or in this particular case, the machining technician. But I'm then thinking about the skills, so the practical element. We've got CAD in unit 1 from the skills side. We've got machining, componentry and secondary processes. We've got measurement and inspection, and then we've got CAD/CAM. So those units as well. So again, looking at the 2 MCQs, which will assess unit 1 and unit 2. And then the MCQ test will assess unit 3 and 4. Again, that will be a single MCQ test. So thinking about the skill assessment, that will be one assessment which will cover those 4 units. Looking at the qualification number 2, we've got metal fabricator. Again, 4 units are exactly the same, but then obviously the skill unit specialised in the metal fabricator standard. So as you can see there, 545 guided learning hours. And again, this is a guidance we've been given. That can be delivered how you want it to be delivered. It can be delivered over a 2-year period. It can be delivered over a 1 year if that's your options, if that's your choice. So again, there's flexibility there in terms of how you wish to deliver these qualifications, funded qualifications, or hopefully will be qualifications. Just looking at the next 2 qualifications, again, core units are the same. You've got electrical and mechanical principles there. Again, hopefully you can see the different differentiation between electrical on the left-hand side, and then looking at the right-hand side, we've got mechanical principles there as the skill options. And then the final one, we've got the mechatronics. Again, same core units there, and then these obviously different skill units at the bottom there, which is currently line engineering technician. I think key thing to take away from these, if an adult learner chooses to progress onto a given apprenticeship, these units can be fully mapped into if there is a non-programme qualification within that apprenticeship. So for example, let's take the fabricator one. If learners were to progress on the metal fabricator, there will be a qualification, a mandated qualification within that. So the units that have been done could be RTL into that programme qualification. So we think that's a huge advantage for learners who wish to progress. Some learners might wish to do it as an upskilling. Some learners might wish to do it just to gain more knowledge and skills, to support entry into some form of occupation or entry into employment in some capacity. Some might choose to progress onto an apprenticeship standard. But at this point, I'm going to pass over to my colleague, Kevin, who's going to go through the BSE.
Thank you, Rob. That was really comprehensive. Hi again, everyone. Nice. Thanks for joining us today. Rob's given a really comprehensive overview there of the changing landscape. And in response to these educational reforms, I'm just going to run through the qualifications we've submitted to IFATE. And these, as Rob said, are currently under approval and scrutiny. So these are funded. This will be funded provision if you have a ESFA contract at your college for 19 plus adults, 2025 delivery. So I'm sure you welcome these. So the first 2 we have developed is one electrical qualification, which is the technical occupational entry in electrical installation maintenance. And we have a plumbing and domestic heating qualification as well. And I do stress these are really good products for your adult market if you want to deliver day release or even night school. The third qualification we have submitted, funded, is in the additional specialist category, which is an updated electric vehicle charging award, which we do currently offer, but we have updated it and we've submitted it. And as Rob said, additional specialist builds upon the apprenticeship standard. So I'm just going to go through these qualifications briefly so you get a flavour of them. So first off, our electrical installation maintenance qualification. I won't read through every single unit, but what I will say is very much in keeping if you're delivering the apprenticeship qualification currently, because both the plumbing and heating and the electrical installation maintenance qualifications, apprenticeships have mandated apprenticeship qualifications. Therefore, we've developed this adult offering to mirror the knowledge skills within the apprenticeship standard and meet the mandated apprenticeship qualification, the theory unit. So these technical occupational entry qualifications do not require on-site evidence. And as Rob pointed out, one of the key characteristics of these qualifications around the assessments, it's synoptic, it's holistic, and it's external. So as you can see here, how we've divided our electrical qualification, we've taken those core principles, but we've also related it so it's palatable for the learners and makes sense for you to be able to deliver that. So we have test 1 covering, which we open book exam, covering holistically a set of units. Test 2 covering science and principles, because we know that's a tricky subject for learners. And test 3, which is the CPD unit for wiring regulations. In addition to this, we've created some excellent practical assessments at level 3 and a design assignment. And you'll be very familiar with the types of assessments we've created. We're very mindful of making them manageable, so not to cause you undue expense, creating more and more centre rigs. So you'll be pleased to know that, you know, we've considered that within the development, so you can utilise a lot of the resources you already have at your centre, or indeed if you're currently delivering these sorts of qualifications with another AO, absolutely you can hand in glove start to take adult learners onto this qualification. So moving on to our plumbing and domestic heating qualification, as already mentioned, this will align to standard 0303 mandated qualification, and our in-house expert has created this. And working with employers as well, we've actually engaged with key stakeholders within the industry, including Chartered Institute of Plumbing and Heating Engineers and BACSI, who make the boilers, of course, and various other industry stakeholders and employers. The unit's very much aligned to the apprenticeship standard, and the beauty with this qualification, it's very lean assessments. So you've simply got the one multiple choice test, holistically covering a number of units there, holistic practical assessment, and a design assignment covering heating calculations and heating loss as would be expected. So finally, our last qualification we have submitted, very straightforward. It's a CPD award. And as you'll see there, the Electrician Plus model. So if you're currently delivering BSE qualifications or you're familiar with TESP, the Electric Technical Skills Partnership, this is a new initiative to recognise that CPD is done almost after that someone's done the core kind of electrical competence. Therefore, this is their trademark Electrician Plus, and this qualification will form very much part of that. So if you're currently delivering our existing electric vehicle charging qualification, you'll be very familiar with this, but we have increased the size of the test to include some aspects around installation and some other areas about DNO notification. The other advantage of this qualification is that because it's assessed via exam only, towards the end of this year, we're certainly looking at rolling out remote proctoring, which is remote invigilation of exams. Therefore, this qualification definitely fits with a blended learning model or even remote learning, remote assessment. So it gives you ultimate flexibility, and we're always considering that within our delivery model. So I think that's the end of my 3 slides, and I think it's back to you, Rob. One thing I will say, but just before I hand back, I have touched there on level 3. Rob's going to go into level 2. We are waiting the guidance from IFATE in relation to level 2. That will come out in cycle 2, which is more of an awarding organisation thing to consider. But as soon as we have that guidance, we will then put our plans into action. We'll review that guidance, put our plans into action to see what offer we can provide at level 2 for those young learners pre-19. Thank you very much. Over to you, Rob.
Thanks, Kevin. Yeah, much appreciated. So we're just going to go through the next few slides now, just looking at the current level 2 reforms. Again, the guidance and really the package we put together to meet that new guidance. So just looking at the groups, and it does differ significantly from the level 3. So we look at the technical qualifications to support entry into employment, and that's going to be the key focus. So looking at that occupational entry there, there's 2 options that for an awarding organisation can submit against. So it's an extended focus. Again, we have to develop a qualification that aligns to a given apprenticeship standard within engineering manufacturing. It's currently 45 at level 2. So we have to ensure whatever we develop, it's fully aligned to the knowledge, skills and behaviours, or aligns as much as possible. And if it doesn't align, we have to be clear why it doesn't align. There's also additional knowledge and transferable employability which needs to be added in. So think about the pastoral, thinking about the CV, that all enrichment, that has to be added in as well. And I can go through where we've added that in. There is a focused option, which is slightly watered down version. And there's also an additional specialist as well, which builds upon an apprenticeship standard. Again, we looked at that in the last few slides. So just looking at it from an employment and a progression to further education. Again, as Kevin mentioned, there's cycle 1 and there's cycle 2. So all in all, within the level 2 reforms, there's 17 different categories, but we're just going to focus on the ones that are relevant to us in this webinar. So as part of cycle 1, there's currently 4 cycles that we can submit against. So again, looking at the top left there, you've got group 2, which is occupational entry qualifications. So these are very much designed for entry into employment in some capacity. You've got group 2, which is just for adults only. So we're submitting, group 3, which is just for adults only. So we're submitting in this group 2 category here for this entry into employment as cycle 1. There then is an option to employer proposed qualifications, which is group 6. And again, thinking about potentially apprenticeships or sectors that don't have many apprenticeship standards in there, that could be an opportunity there for submitting. Again, we are got a significant amount of apprenticeship standards within engineering manufacturing. Again, you've got the specialist, which is group 4, and then you've also got the cross-sectional if you wanted to merge a couple of, if you wanted to merge 2 different apprenticeship standards together to create a qualification, that is an option there as part of that group 5. Just thinking a bit further ahead to cycle 2, and again, we don't have the exact guidance or timelines in terms of cycle 2, but we know that some of the other groups are going to come out as part of that cycle 2 and other sectors as well. So as I mentioned, it was only relevant, cycle 1 was only relevant to a few sectors. Cycle 2 will be open to other sectors, but also open to the sectors in group 1. Cycle 1 can also resubmit other qualifications as part of that cycle 2. There's going to be group 1, which is progression to level 3 technical study. So thinking about progression to T-levels, traditionally known as the transition program. I think it's just changed its name to a T-level foundation program. So that will be the typical group 1 and something that we will be submitting against for engineering manufacturing. And
Again, thinking a bit further ahead, you've got progression to level 3 academic study. Again, that's an opportunity thinking about from an academic point of view. And then also you've got the ESOL, which is Group 8, and then you've got level 1, which comes underneath that, which will come out at a later date. So that's your cycle 1 and your cycle 2. So just to be clear, we're submitting against cycle 1 for engineering and manufacturing. So just looking at the timeline, we are currently in development for that now, and we will submit our offer by the end of I think it's mid-November this year. So it doesn't give us an awful lot of time. So we started that. We've got to do the scoping. We've got to create the full specification, sample materials. Again, standard mapping. Everything has to be aligned and mapped to your apprenticeship standard. And then a significant amount of employer engagement is required to ensure that the qualifications we develop meet the needs of the employers and give the learners that knowledge and skills needed to enter into employment, whether that's an apprenticeship or some employment in some capacity. Again, same timelines in terms of the submission and review windows. We're hoping by next summer we will get approval for what we've submitted, and then that onboarding journey very much starts up until 2025. So hopefully by 2025 we'll have level 2 and level 3 reform products available. Just looking at what we've submitted then, and again, the apprenticeship standards that it's been aligned against. Again, this is still in development, but we're happy with our current offer, but we will, again, if anyone has any, is open, has any advice in terms of any gaps which are in the market in terms of for your full-time learners at level 2, please do let us know. It's something we can look at for cycle 2. But in terms of what we've got for cycle 1, we've got a technical entry in fabrication and welding, which is aligned to engineering operative. Looking at qualification 2, we've got a technical entry which is in electrical engineering. There is electrical and electronics in that, it's not just electrical. Again, that's aligned to operative. Machining, technical entry in machining, again operative, and technical occupational entry in technical support, again aligned to the same standard. And then the final one, which is maintenance, again aligned to engineering operative. We did look at other apprenticeship standards. We did look at possibly some of alternative qualifications, but we thought that this offer here really supports the learners, it supports the centres. We looked at the common units used across centres, common qualifications, and we do feel that this significantly fills your needs at level 2. Just have a little bit of a close look again, just to bear in mind, this is very much still in the development stage. So, there could be some shift in terms of GLA or units, but we feel that this is, we had enough to share. So looking at the qualification 1, we have fabrication welding. Again, a similar concept to assessment as we did for the level 3. So it's the same core units which go across all 5 qualifications, which will be assessed via MCQ 1, possibly 2. We're not at that level of detail just yet. Thinking about the skill units, again, that will be assessed by a holistic assessment. So those 4 units there will be assessed by 1, possibly 2 tasks where learners have to complete, and they will naturally cover all those 4 units. So some form of fabrication and welding tasks to significantly cover those units there. So via obviously think about external and internal assessment. We will create all the assessments, but it's likely that the centres will mark the skill units. Obviously the MCQ test will be done via the systems, but will be moderated by us as well, those skill assessments, those holistic skill assessments. Just looking at the electrical qualification, again, it is a mixture of electrical and electronic, but again, the same core units used, and then obviously the skill units aligned to that given pathway in engineering operative, because engineering operative contains several pathways which are all unique to themselves. Just moving on, sorry, didn't want too far. Just moving on to the machining one. Again, same core units, looking at manual, looking at manual turning, manual milling, and then you've got the CNC turning and the CNC milling. We do feel that these units selected in any of these qualifications do align to the knowledge and skills within the apprenticeship standard, but also give the learners the confidence and competence needed to progress onto their next journey, given the pathway of their choice. Technical support, we've got computer-aided design, we've got planning projects, we've got the BIT, business improvement techniques. The design, although it's in red there, it's been incorporated into Unit 2 and Unit 3 because we thought that rather than design by itself, it could be naturally incorporated within those 2 units. So that's why it's in there as red. Guided learning hours across all these qualifications will be 410 guided learning hours. We've added in additional knowledge into the core, looking at sustainability. There's currently no sustainability within that apprenticeship standard. So we feel by offering that qualification there, or that content within the qualification as a whole, is certainly a huge advantage and benefit. And it's been certainly well received by the employers that we've had as part of that panel. So additional content there. And then the final one, looking at maintenance, again, same core units, looking at then the skill units, engineering, maintenance safety practices, engineering maintenance planning, maintenance techniques, and plan and carry out projects. I think the key thing to take away from this level 2 is within the engineering operative, there's a knowledge qualification that we currently offer, and these units here align perfectly to the engineering operative knowledge qualification. So should learners progress onto engineering operative, then naturally that RPL will take place, pretty much making them exempt from the knowledge qualification within that apprenticeship standard. They will still have to do the competency qualification because obviously that's skills related, but this one, these knowledge units will be able to be brought forward into that knowledge qualification. So I think a key thing to take away from this session. I'm going to pass over to my colleague Kevin, who's going to go through the employer engagement that we still require for any employers on the call.
Brilliant, thanks, Rob. That was really interesting. And just to reiterate what Rob was saying there, you know, within engineering manufacturing, they're in a different cycle. So within building services, will be the next cycle. So we'll be looking very closely at the level 2 offer we can deliver in building services for you for 2026 first teaching. And this also is just an overview of our plans and what we're doing. And as we progress over the next couple of years, we'll divulge more information about these qualifications as well. But finally, I just wanted to, this is a really important area which we would absolutely really implore you to help us with, which is employer engagement. To effectively enable us to deliver these qualifications, this new funded provision, we must engage with employers. Employers are at the heart of these reforms, and we have done extensive employer engagement as part of the qualifications we have already submitted to IFATE. And as Rob said, we're now going to be moving into next year live assessment development, and as part of that, we must further engage with employers. And so really, it's a request really for people on the if you're listening today. If you are delivering qualifications to apprentices, you have those links with employers. We would really welcome those introductions. So they, within building services, you know, they could be micro businesses, sole contractors. Within engineering, they could be, you know, small businesses, SMEs, large employers, all shapes and sizes. We'd really welcome those introductions. And really the pledge from then is just really a few hours really over the year, meeting with us, blended meetings online, and we can share with them our plans, our assessments, get that feedback, and really they can help shape future education and also get an opportunity to network with other employers. So our contact details are at the end. And if you're not sure, if you want any more advice on that, please let us know. But if you can introduce us to any employers, that would be excellent. So thank you very much. I think now I'm going to pass on to you, Sam, I think.
Thank you, Kev, for that. That's much
Thank you.
appreciated. So it's great to hear about the products that we are delivering and developing for the engineering and as well as building services engineering. And just to let you know, there's some supporting guidance that's going to be available throughout this journey, and as well as our other qualifications that we offer in the EAL portfolio. So as we go on this journey, we've got a brand new dedicated technical advisor team. We're going to be up and down the country on the road, showcasing our products and supporting guidance, as well as supporting regarding these level 2 and level 3 reforms going forward. That includes our face-to-face network events, network events across the regions, the webinars that you're joining now, and webinars for the future as well. Provider focus group is a massive importance. So if you want to develop some qualifications, as well as have that employer feedback, we'd like to have that provider feedback as well. The Employer Industry Board is an ideal part if you want to get involved in these qualifications. Again, Rob and Kev are happy to invite you to today's Employer Industry Boards. Coming forward, and always do, if you're not already signed up for, is our Spotlight newsletter. Again, this tells you what's happening, where we're about in the country, and what's happening with the qualifications, as well as the latest roadshows that we're offering. And going forward, there are going to be those draft specifications that we have submitted that you can start looking at and you have your opinions about as well. These are just part of the support that the technical advisor team will be offering. And as well as going forward, we can work closely with those centres to get the information clearly regarding that support and reforms. So, as we said, please put the questions through the chat. We're now all back on screen, and we've had a couple of questions that's coming through. So the first one was come from Richard Palmer, and it's to Rob. In the machining pathway, will there be anything for companies that do not use CNC operations? And I assume that is regarding the level 3 reforms.
Hi, Richard. Yeah, I think just to be clear, the qualifications across level 2 and level 3 will all be delivered in a provider setting. So learners, if so it's not linked to an employer any capacity. So obviously thinking about learners progressing on to the next steps into an apprenticeship or employment, those skills in terms of that CNC will be a huge benefit. We hope will be a huge benefit to the employer and the learners. So just to reiterate, the reform products, I think there's been over a few questions as well regarding apprenticeships. The reform products are for funded qualifications from a full-time point of view, full-time learners. So your apprenticeship standards are completely separate to the reform products. The key thing to just bear in mind is the reform products have to be aligned to an apprenticeship standard. That's where the connection is. That it's not we're not trying to compete with apprenticeship standards. That's not the intention.
And I think that is the one that Matt raised as well regarding the question, because I hope we managed to get on Matt. I know you're having a bit of technical issues at the beginning, but again, he's put missed so much of these. I replaced the separate knowledge and skills qualifications. Like Rob just said, it's not replacing the apprenticeship one. It's actually replacing the full-time programs like crossover T levels.
And it's about us recognising where these qualifications fit into progression. So you wouldn't expect learners to repeat learning. So again, thinking about an apprenticeship, let's think about engineering operative. Learners have to cover a knowledge and a competency qualification as part of that offer. So what we've done is looked at this current level 2 reformed offer. How does that equate to learners if they progress onto that standard? You wouldn't expect learners to repeat the same units again. So that's what we've tried to ensure could seamlessly happen if it did, if learners did progress onto that. Likelihood is they could progress onto multiple apprenticeships or moving on to maybe level 3. Again, they're completely different. They'd have to do those mandated quals, etc. outside of that.
So Trevor Cartwright, this might go into yours as well. So will the effective qualification, so it's the EAL level 3 MVQ diploma in engineering maintenance, service maintenance pathway will be affected.
So the MVQ, the level 3 MVQ, no. So I think, again, just to reiterate, the MVQs are typically used possibly for the actual workforce, so people, currently learners, currently in work. These qualifications, the level 3 qualifications of adult learners, potentially not in any employment, or so it's thinking about the entry, it's entry into employment, entry into engineering, that's in the title, that entry, occupational entry. So it's an entry where MVQs are very much to support potentially, you know, learners currently on an apprenticeship or upskilling, etc.
Cheers, thanks for that, Bob. Peter Kelly, can as a UTC offer the EAL Level 3 Extended Diploma in Engineering as a standalone qual to replace the BTECs due to the BTEC being scrapped?
I suppose another key thing to take away from this is, you know, we're talking about potentially funded offer here. We're not saying we're closing anything that we've currently got. That's not the intention. We're not closing any qualifications that you currently use. What we're saying is this could potentially be your funded offer from 2025. So we're not closing anything down, you know, but what we're saying is the implications to the funding have changed or will be changing moving forward, and we're trying to come up with a recognised offer to support your funded offer.
Yeah, and UTCs.
Kevin, I don't know if you've got anything to add on that.
Yeah, as well as that, UTCs can offer any EAL qualification as long as it comes under the funding offer. So it's not just our level 3s, it's our level 2s as well. We've got specific programs for our 14 to 16-year-olds. So yes, please do get in touch if you like further information on that as well. One for Kevin. Kevin, you are trying to find this big list now. I think you might have already answered it, Kevin. Oh no, it is. Accessing the sound, so forgive me if it would have been covered. Sean said, what are the options open to the level 2 electrical installation learners next year instead of the level 3?
Okay, so I think this is around what's funded. I think there was an announcement, some information by IFATE recently. My understanding, even though the level 2, there are those level 2 reforms, I think that will be continued to be funded next year. But what I'll do there, Sean, is with all of these things, it gets complex with the funding and the introduction of new qualifications and the switch off of the old. And I'll send a link to the latest guidance and can pick that up with you separately. But they are funded this year, I can tell you that much. So kind of answers that one, Sam. So
yeah, that's good.
Back with the relevant information.
Yeah, that was brilliant. Again, it goes into Hugh McPhillips' question as well. Can you tell us when the run out of existing qualification will be in fabrication and welding, and the last registration date will be as well? Again, it's that funding run out date. It's all changing constantly. All I can recommend to centres and employees is just keep checking on the government website. They will have more information. And again, if you need any further information, then either contact the technical advisors at EAL, and then we should be able to search that for more information behind it. But as we said, we are not switching qualifications off. Our portfolio is across building services and engineering. It is still valid, and we will let you know which qualification we'll be switching off in due course. And the last one on my chat part is Dan Charlesworth report. What about the apprenticeship standards is not enhanced as existing qualifications? Are you reducing qualification criteria, i.e. dumbing down, to meet the standard? The new mandated qual policy will not allow quals to cover the apprenticeship in entirely. Many standards I have read or come across are vague and are not as robust as vocational awards.
Well, it's a good question, and I don't know if we can answer all that, but in terms of the apprenticeship standards, they're agreed by the Trailblazer Group. Trailblazer Group then obviously mandate any qualifications which go in that, and us as awarding bodies, we build qualifications to meet the requirements of a given standard and a given Trailblazer Group. So in terms of what we're trying to achieve here, we've aligned, first of all, we align to an apprenticeship standard, not a qualification. So that's what we have to mapping against, or we map against KSBs, not qualifications. So that's what we have to do. So whether there's a qualification within a given apprenticeship standard, that's not really up to us, that's out of our remit. We've identified a key apprenticeship standard here, which is engineering operative, and we've aligned our offer to that knowledge, skills and behaviour as part of that level 2 offer, which we will submit in November. It's just in this particular case, there is a mandated qualification or 2 mandated qualifications within that, which is knowledge and competence. And what we've identified is that transition, if a learner gets an apprenticeship standard, or it gets employment in that particular apprenticeship standard, then there can be a seamless transition from the full-time learner or full-time level 2 reform product into the apprenticeship standard. So really, hope that answers that question.
Cheers, thank you for that, Rob. So that's all our Q&A's done. So what I'd like to say is thank you for joining us. If you did have technical issue at the bottom, we do apologise, but do look out for the recording of the webinar. On the screen, you can see myself, Rob's and Kev's email address, so do get in touch with us. And again, we're there to support you throughout this journey. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.